Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. It will be in a slightly different format than my usual videos, and the topic I want to cover is the cars that I purchased that I lost money on. Now maybe some of you guys are considering doing the whole car flipping thing, and right here on the screen you guys can see there are 11 cars that I lost money on. I will be going down the list. It's organized pretty much by year, so from the oldest car moving down to the newest car. And I will show you guys pictures of the car and kind of talk about it a little bit. So this one you could see damage right here. Don't remember if this one had any rear damage. So this car was sold with front end damage by an insurance company, and I figured it was a fairly safe buy because it's an older car, higher mileage. That's how much I sold the car for. So we'll drag it to this side. This was my winning bid. This was the date. We can ignore all of this minor stuff. This is how much the car ended up costing me, and this is how much I sold it for. All of these cars that I lost money on, I think with the exception of one, I sold back at the auction. And you guys might be thinking, why is this such a drastic drop in price or sale price from my purchase price? Well, this price includes the auction fees and then shipping, because this car came from Seattle. This price includes listing the car through the auction and then the sale fees. More or less, every single car that I purchased, it sold for a similar price here where I sold it. But after paying auction fees when buying, after paying shipping, and then when selling, paying auction fees, you really lose quite a bit of money. So this car I lost $703 on, and this was a 2000 Acura 3.2. Next one was a Volvo S80. So this one was purchased from IAAI. This one was purchased from Copart. I believe this was a donated vehicle. This was one of the first purchases that I made when I got my dealer's license. It had front end damage, and I figured, bracket, a new headlight, something minor, not a big deal. I could fix it up and get a quick flip. So the car got here. It was in pretty good shape. Interior is very nice, clean. I mean, common wear for a car that age. It started with absolutely no problems, and it ran with no problems. The transmission was bad on it. I don't know if it was a computer issue or not. Most likely the trainee was just going out. Sometimes I start the car, I put it in gear, no problem. It moves, no issues. Sometimes I put in gear and literally nothing happens. It's like dead. Reverse, drive, nothing. So after kind of contacting a few friends, a few buddies, they said these cars have common transmission issues and replacing it or fixing it probably isn't worth it, considering the mileage it had. So I ended up throwing this one back on the auction, and it doesn't look like I made a list how much I lost on it. Okay, I just checked my spreadsheet. So I have an Excel spreadsheet where I record every single purchase, every single sale, the expenses. I actually made $1 on this car. Moving on to the next one. So this was a Dodge Ram. I purchased it at a dealer-only auction. I did not see it in person. I pretty much placed a bid online. I saw this truck go through the lane. There was a video of it basically going through the auction. It's a nice little pickup truck. Looks great, looks clean. I don't remember the mileage. These are pretty much the only photos I have of it. So the story with this truck is I purchased it. I went down to the auction to pick it up, and it needed a jump start. This was literally the first car I have ever purchased since I got my dealer's license. And I take it out of the auction, and it's like bogging down. It's not doing well. And I'm thinking, man, what the heck is going on? The gearings are weird. Like a little bit more that I drive it, starting to make a funny noise, and it was low on gas. So I literally drive like a quarter mile from the auction. I pull into a gas station, and the guy comes up, and I was like, listen, man, I can't kill the truck because it has a dead battery. Can you fill it up as is? You know, I'm not going to shut it off. He was totally cool with that. I filled it up. I put like 10 bucks in it, and I put it in drive, and it doesn't move. And I'm thinking, man, what the heck? So I start messing with the 4x4 switch. I start kind of messing with the throttle, and sooner or later I kind of get it to move. And I leave the gas station, and there's like a little uphill drive, and the thing dies on me. Essentially what I think happened was it was low on transmission fluid, and I didn't check because, again, very first truck, and I single-handedly killed the transmission. So I sold it as is to a guy. He came with a trailer like 3-4 hours away. He came at 1 in the morning and picked up this truck. I was really bummed out. It was first car I've ever purchased with the dealer's license, and I ended up losing money on it. Next one is a 2001 Jeep. I've had a handful of these now. This one is very, very memorable to me because it had a rod knock, engine knock, something of that sort. It was a very clean Jeep. I don't remember the title status of it. Mileage is pretty good. I mean, it's fairly clean. So 2 reasons why this Jeep stands out. One, that it had an engine knock of some sort. And 2, I found a whole bunch of stuff in the Jeep, including a catheter that was full. It is, to date, probably one of the grossest things I've found in a car. And I found a lot of gross things in cars, which is probably a good topic for another video. Let's see, I have a video here. There's the video of the engine running. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear the knocking. I lost probably a few $100 on this Jeep. Next one is a 2002 Ford Explorer. This is how I bought it. I believe this had front end damage. Again, I like to buy cars with very minimal damage. This is something I figured, you know, won't be a big deal. It'd be easy sale for myself. And it came in, and the engine was also making some kind of odd noise. It wasn't a knocking noise. It was more of a grinding noise. And when you give it gas, at idle, it was more or less okay. But when you give it gas, you kind of hear this grinding noise. So this is how much I paid for it. And this is how much I sold it for after auction fees and whatnot. And this was my loss. All right, this Jeep is, if you guys have been following the channel for a little bit, me and my brother bought 2 Jeeps, and they both needed some body parts. So we found this parts cheap with parts Jeep with a blown engine. We paid $500 for it. Condition was pretty fantastic of the Jeep. I took the rear bumper, the trunk lid. I took every single tire, including the spare, for my Jeep because my Jeep had a crack in the wheel on the inside, so it wasn't holding air. So these are actually the wheels that came on my Jeep, and I took the limited wheels off of this Jeep and put them on mine. My brother took the fender and the mirror because the limited ones and Overland have heated mirrors, and his mirror was browning, and he figured he'd just replace it. But this one went back to Copart. We knew we weren't going to make any money on this Jeep. and we bought it for the sole purpose of just a few body parts. But we paid $500 for it. It sold for $265. Winning bid was $400 minus auction fees, and we essentially lost $235 on this Jeep. This car I purchased out of California. I've had a handful of cars at this point, and I figured I want something kind of fun, sporty for myself. It was around the summertime, and I figured I'd experience this car and hopefully make some money on it. There's some body damage, more or less, fairly minor stuff. I figured a new trunk lid wasn't that expensive. I believe that this quarter panel is removable. Interior looked pretty good. It was a convertible. No major signs. The engine is running, no check engine light. Has a light, airbag light, which is somewhat common when buying cars. So I purchased it. The car came in, and if you guys can see down here, it was zip tied. It looks like the hit went underneath. It was low on oil, so I did an oil change. I let the car run for maybe 15 minutes in my driveway, and I drove it for maybe a mile around the neighborhood. Came back, it was dripping oil underneath, made a whole mess in my driveway, and I opened up the oil cap on the hood, and it was completely white. So clearly either a blown head gasket or something of that sort. Also, the interior was in a lot worse shape. It was a lot dirtier. Pictures kind of don't really show a dirty interior, but it was very filthy. I actually ended up cleaning it up quite a bit. The top worked, stereo worked. It started up on its own. One of the headlights, I believe, was out, and replacing the bulb is kind of difficult to get to. I think if I remember correctly, you have to remove the wheel trim right here, the plastic piece, and then reach in behind it. Ideally, you would take off this tire to get to the headlight, and I put in a new bulb in it, and it still wasn't working, so I figured it was just a lost cause. So I took it to the auction. I believe it took about 3 weeks to sell. This is how much I paid for it after shipping, and I sold it for $21.65, and I lost $1,300 on it. This was the first car that I lost a considerable amount of money on. Very disappointed, but at that point, just kind of move on and go forward. Next car is a 05 Ford Mustang. This one also came from California. The damage on it didn't look as bad. I knew I'd need a new control arm. This didn't look too bad. When I got the car, this damage was quite a bit more in person. I ended up putting a new battery in this car and replacing the control arm. And when I got the car, battery was dead. It had some kind of aftermarket alarm system. And when originally the same guy was supposed to bring the Z4 and the Mustang, because I purchased him the same day from the same auction, and he calls me and he's like, hey man, the Mustang doesn't have any keys, so I'm gonna have to charge you more because technically it's not a run and drive. So I called the auction, and basically they lost the keys to the Mustang. They said they could hold on to the car and they'll give me extra time to find a different transporter, and they will make a key for it, which I agreed for. I found a different transporter. The guy who brought the car basically said the car has a weird electrical issue. The issue was when you put the key in, put the jump box on it, the alarm goes off, and you turn the key and the car doesn't start. It's completely limp mode. You can't do anything with it. And I messed with it. Somehow I figured out that you could put the key into the ignition, turn it, put the jump box on it, and then the car would start. The alarm would still go like crazy, but at least the car would start and I could drive it to my house because the guy parked on the side of the street. and park it in my driveway. It was very awkward. It was early in the morning, like 7 a.m. This Mustang is just wailing down the street with this aftermarket alarm system. And I ended up putting a new battery in it. Once it kind of reset everything, it was totally fine. But why I lost money on it? So this is how much it ended up costing me. I met with the buyer. I thought that the Mustang cost me $2,700, roughly $2,700. So that's what I sold it for. I wanted to break even, and I came home and I saw that it actually cost me $2,800. So by accident, I lost $100 on it. No big deal, but a loss is a loss. This car I was very excited for. It only had a dent on the door, which I was okay with. The reason why I bought this is for the interior. This was one of the most beautiful interiors I have ever owned, or to some extent seen in a minivan. This car was fully loaded. It had like Bose premium speakers, heated seats, navigation, backup camera, I mean, you name it. The roof had these glass panels up top, which were kind of like a panoramic view to them. I mean, pictures don't do it justice. In person, this interior was beautiful. I mean, to say the least. It was a very, very nice looking interior, and it needed a new battery, so I put a new battery in it. While driving it, it made a really odd noise that sounded like it was coming from the wheels. So I ended up actually buying new rotors, new brake pads for it, thinking that was the issue. Replaced all of it, did an oil change on this van, and I had to run an errand. My dad came over. I was like, hey, let's take the van, see how it runs on the main roads at higher speeds. So we get out on the main road, and this thing will not go over 25 miles per hour. It gets to 25 miles per hour, and then it will drop a gear, and it will literally, like flooring it, it will go down to 15 miles per hour, and then it'll go back up to 25 miles per hour, and then drop it. So I figured it was a transmission issue. I didn't want to deal with it. I ended up taking it to the auction. This is how much it cost me, and this is how much I sold it for, and this was my loss. Very unfortunate, because I probably would have made $1,500 on this van. The interior would have been a very high selling point for it, but that one I am disappointed with, because I could have kind of enjoyed it. The interior was beautiful. So this car, story with this one's probably good for another day. Shipping company was a complete disaster. I ended up telling them basically I no longer need their services, and I ended up picking up the car myself. This bumper was replaced, so when I showed up, it had the original bumper inside the car, which was completely busted up. It was cracked, so the bumper was a two-piece, and the damage was clearly hidden. This was sold by an insurance company. Underneath here, which the pictures don't show you, the reinforcement bar was bent in, the radiator was cracked, and yeah, this was a car that had a whole bunch of damage hidden behind the bumper. But of course, buying it by the pictures, it looks like a clean little car. No issues with it. I got it home. With the issues, I kind of tried messing with it, repairing it. I wasn't successful with it, so I ended up taking it to the auction. This is how much it cost me. This is how much I sold it for, and this was my loss. And the last car was a Kia Sportage. Nice looking little car. This was the damage. Both of the exhaust tips were bent down. This one is clearly bent down a little bit more underneath. A few scuffs on the bumper. I figured fairly quick flip, clean interior, aftermarket stereo. Good mileage on this car. I came home, I started it up. You drive about 6-10 feet, and it makes a clicking sound underneath, a fairly harsh clicking sound, which was super odd. And I was thinking, man, what is going on? So I got up underneath the car, and underneath, I don't know, maybe because of the damage, the transfer case, it literally cracked. So when the drive shaft moves, it forces the transfer case kind of to move to the right side, and it'll move to a point and then it'll skip off the broken piece and it makes a loud clunk sound. So I tried finding a new transfer case for like $300, maybe $400, but looking underneath, it would have been so much work to repair it and replace it, and I basically ended up putting it back on the auction, and this is how much it cost me. This is how much I sold it for, and that was my loss. All right, guys. So with, I don't know, roughly 110 cars that I've had, 11 of them have been losses, which equates to about 10% of all cars that I purchase end up being a loss. Haven't really had a loss lately. Been making fairly good money on the last, I don't know, 15, 20 cars that I've had. No major issues. Definitely experience helps. Buying safer cars helps. But sometimes there is hidden damage, especially when dealing with salvage title cars. You could see the physical damage, but there could be mechanical issues. And from what you guys see, most of these cars that I've lost money on have been mechanical issues, either transmission, engine, blown head gaskets, knocking sounds, whatever the case is. It happens. Whether you buy from Copart, whether you buy from IAA, every single car is a risk. Just expect that when you buy from an auction. The way to minimize something like that is buy local, physically play the car. If you go to Copart, you can start the car, you could hear it, you know, put your foot on the brake, put the car into drive, see if you could feel it jerking, see if it will switch gears smoothly. At IAA, you could physically go to the auction during the live auction and play the car. You will see them drive it through the lane. You'll be able to hear any engine sounds. You'll be able to see if it's smoking out of the tailpipe. Whatever the reason, you could very, very easily minimize these risks if you buy these cars locally and inspect them in person. All of these cars that I lost money on have been purchased out of state, aside from this Dodge Ram. But I wish you guys the best of luck. If this is something you're considering doing full-time, even part-time as a hobby, good luck to you guys. Hopefully you don't make mistakes. Hopefully something like this is helpful to you guys. Please leave a comment. Let me know if you guys have any other questions that you'd like to ask me, any requests for future videos. This was a requested video. I'm sure there's other people that look for something of this sort, information, clarification, and hopefully this was very helpful to you guys. I appreciate you guys spending time watching this video.